Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, the Season 5, Episode 18. It's called Cause and Effect, so full spoilers for the episode as always. And we got a bit of a time loop episode of sorts. It's not quite the Groundhog Day style that a lot of shows will do. In fact, this show might have even already done that at one point.
It probably has.
I can't remember. This is kind of more of a time loop where it's like they're having a bit of deja vu of the previous loops, and it kind of spreads throughout the characters, and they're all kind of vaguely aware of it once they've looped a few times. But the episode opens with the ship being destroyed in some kind of disaster, and then we seem to jump back, but technically we don't jump back. We're just in the next loop, so we've actually still moved forward.
I'm not particularly throwing shade at this show.
Mm-hmm.
It's just every TV show that's ever done this time loop episode. And this is fresh in my mind because I just watched last week's Doctor Who, the New Year's episode, which was also a time loop. Actually, also very similar, where it had the deja vu thing, where kind of after a few loops, they kind of knew what was going on. I just want one show to do. Okay, they do the cold open, like they all do, and they always show this is the end of the loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want them to go into the closing credits. Instead of going into the opening credits, hit the closing credits, and then at the end of and then you don't have to play the whole of the closing credits. You can just play a bit of them, and then open with the next loop again. Just once.
Do you know what's weird about that, and maybe why I don't agree with this suggestion, is that makes the closing credits a part of the episode itself, and really they're not. They're kind of like after the episode's done in a way. It's like that's like a meta joke, because it's the credits are not they're not actually part of the universe. They're just like a thing that's added on as a TV show at the end. Does that make sense? Yeah. So they're not included in the loop. Is what I'm saying.
Well, but opening credits, you still interrupt for opening credits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But...
Do you know what? Again, part of this may be recent Doctor Who factoring in, because that also played with credits in the last season. But I just want that idea once. I just want one show to just go, screw it, we're gonna put the closing credits. Okay,
well, you must have at least appreciated the start of Happy Death Day then, where the start of the Universal logo played 3 times.
I'll be honest, I don't remember, because I haven't seen that movie since it came out.
Sure, but yeah, dun, 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 ooh, dun, dun. Like it does it 3 times.
I do appreciate it. I'll be honest, I always appreciate goofy takes on studio logos.
Yeah, it's a little gimmicky thing.
They're pretty much always fun. So I do appreciate that. But it's a very specific thing I want after the cold open on a TV show doing a time loop episode. Just one of them, please do it.
All right, Connor's weird complaint out of the way.
And it is like the biggest complaint I've got. It's not even really a complaint. This is a great episode. I had a lot of fun.
It's a very good episode. There's a couple of things that I especially like about it and how it handles a couple of things. I like that we start the episode proper, after we have the cold open and we go into the episode proper, and it starts with a poker game, which is what we cut back to. Every time it ends, it comes back to the poker game. I love that we start in loop 2, or it's technically loop 1, I suppose, but it's the second time they've experienced this time. And I love the techniques it uses to have Crusher notice a couple of things in ways that feel very natural. She basically calls Riker's bluff on his hand. Like, she just kind of has a feeling, right? And that's what she says. She has a feeling. And I wasn't really aware it was a time loop episode yet. I'd kind of forgotten, if we read what was going to happen in last week or last episode, I'd forgotten that that's what it said. I wasn't like thinking about it.
I only knew because I'd seen the title of the episode before we started.
Sure.
And I happened to have awareness of it being a time loop.
Yeah. So I didn't know that necessarily. So she said she had a feeling. I was like, okay, that just felt natural. And then she like examines Geordi. He's got like an ear infection or something, and she's like, "Hey, if you had these symptoms before, I could have sworn you'd had this." And that's the one that's a bit more in your face, and it kind of clicks that. Wait a minute, she's recognizing things from like loopiness. And what I really appreciate about this, so then it plays out, and we basically this loop, other than these little moments of recognition and her hearing some vague voices, at night before she goes to sleep. It just plays out kind of like it probably did on day 1, right? Where we get to see what happened. We get to see them encounter this weird anomaly, and then this other starship appears in front of them, and they're trying to like figure out a way to dodge it because it's coming right for them. And the way they do it every time until the very end, of course, is the beam, the tractor beam to try and like knock it off course. But it hits the back of the ship, chaos ensues, and then it's like, you know, everyone abandoned ship, boom, time loop resets. What I really appreciated about this is when we come back to, you know, like our next loop, and we're sort of going into it, right? And we're back at the poker game. The opening shot of this poker game, you can see Riker, because it's like an over-the-shoulder shot of Data, right? And you can see Riker and you can see Worf. The only person not in frame is Crusher. And it's a simple little thing, and it's not like it takes that long to cut to her, but it's like, as an audience, we know she was the one that was noticing things. And at this point in the episode, we don't actually know that anyone else is going to. This might just be Crusher as the one who, like, she's, you know, like a Groundhog Day episode, she's going to be the one that remembers everything.
So it just leaves her separate.
It leaves her separate, and it leaves you wondering, is she still sitting there? What does she know? Does she remember more this time because it's reset again? And then throughout the scene, it does just simple little things, like it pauses a bit longer before she like says something compared to the first time, or maybe the shot tracks in a little bit, whereas before it was a static shot, just to give you this little moment of she's like recognizing things, even if she's not saying anything extra, she's like just having little moments of recognition. And then it swerves you because you're waiting for her to say something, you're waiting for her to like predict a card or something, and then it's Riker who says something that's like, oh, I remember this. And it's like, oh, that was a nice little swerve, and now it's establishing that they're all going to start remembering little details and things, and they all start predicting the cards that are going to be dealt. And that's a really fun mechanic actually, because they subvert it later on when they.
That's a really nice touch, that scene later on as well, because on that loop, there's just almost enough of it plays out as normal that I'm like, do we really need to be seeing a full loop again at this point of the episode? But it has just enough interesting, unique things that make it worth it.
I think that's part of the charm and why these episodes are so fun, and when they're done well, is that it kind of encourages you to look. It's encouraging you to spot the difference, right? You're looking for the details that are changing and the things that are advancing.
But there is a balancing act to it, because you don't want to show too many of the same things that aren't changing many times, because it gets boring, right?
Yeah, but there's simple little techniques. Like every time she is going to bed, or when she wakes up, she like knocks over a glass. She's got like a glass of sherry or something next to her bed. And what I really like is halfway through the episode, when she's starting to remember stuff enough that instead of going to bed, she tries to record the voices. And instead of just going to sleep after, she actually goes to see Picard one loop, and then another loop she goes to see Geordi immediately to try and like figure out from a science perspective. I like that the first time she doesn't go to bed like she did before, she still knocks the glass over when she goes to leave her room. And it's kind of this almost implication, just subtly, that it doesn't matter if things change, the outcome's going to be the same because the glass still smashed. You know, it's just that little subtle thing.
It happens a couple of times, because there's that one that you mentioned, and there's one where she's on the comms with Geordi and Data.
Yeah.
And so later on, and we're in the room with Geordi and Data, and we're just hearing Crusher. And there's a point where you just hear the glass smash, and she's just like, "Damn it!" And you know, and you just, as an audience, you know, we know what's happened, and it just has that moment of triggering, even though she's so far ahead of the game, so to speak, on this loop.
Yeah,
it's still these points that can't be changed.
And even the other characters, because I think this is actually meant to be the same time it normally happens. It's just that in this loop, the other characters have got enough of a reason to be checking things, because they're working on like trying to figure out the anomalies or whatever.
They notice the voices, or they notice something is happening on the system.
Yeah. And over the course of the episode, we find out that these voices are actually echoes of the previous loops. They're actually just their own voices from the ship.
I really like that. And because we got hints of it as well with Geordie's visor, because we learned pretty early his dizziness, it's not an ear infection, it's actually a visor problem. It's basically seeing echoes of the past loops, and they're just little fragmented images that are kind of causing him headaches.
I love this type of shit, and I think one of my favorite little choices in the direction, which by the way, Jonathan Frakes directed this one, so well done, Mr. Frakes.
He did a damn good job, yeah.
But one of the little touches that I really love, and it's just a tone thing more than anything else, but on the loop when we're back to the poker game, and it's the one where they're all predicting cards. It's not just, because the first time Crusher predicts cards, she predicts a few of them, and they're all like, oh, that's weird. But it's a time where they sort of take turns, and like, you know, Riker predicts like a couple, and then Worf predicts a couple. It's not treated, because you could treat this scene with almost about 10 different tones if you really wanted to, depending on where you wanted to take the story and depending on what you wanted. But it chooses the one that I like the most, and that is ominous. Like, this is like, oh, it's almost like, wait, are we in a David Lynch movie? All of us, and I'm not saying it feels like a David Lynch movie, but I'm saying that's what the character should feel like. If we somehow walked into a Twilight Zone and we like, how do we comprehend this?
You feel the fear.
Yeah.
They know these cards. They know there's no way they just guessed randomly all three of them like that. But they don't have any idea why they know. And that is terrifying to them. And I love as it should be.
And it skips over like one of the annoying like things we might have had to go through, like because the first time Crusher hears the voices and she doesn't, she goes back to sleep, but the next morning at the meeting before the big catastrophe happens in the bridge, she brings this up at the meeting. She's like, "Oh, well, something I want to report, Captain." He's like, "Oh yeah, go on." And she says, "Well, last night I thought I heard some voices." And she's like, and before she's like, she lets it go any further, and she acknowledges that obviously it sounds like, oh, maybe you were just dreaming, you woke up, but there's enough doubt here to not think that something's up.
But 10 other people reported it too.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, that's enough that you have to at least consider something's going on. And Geordi gives like a good explanation. He's like, oh, maybe there's like a glitch in the comms. So maybe some of the comms like units are playing some audio or something.
But they don't like dismiss it. They're like, okay. Yeah. It's not one person. There's at least 11 of you. That's at least something to go on.
I would have
look into it.
I would have given it benefit and just been okay with one loop of everyone doubting her and thinking she's crazy. But I'm glad that it actually circumvented it completely. I appreciate that, because it's one of those annoying things that you have to kind of go through.
And it's not like they took it like the most serious thing in the world, but immediately they're like, we'll run some scans.
Yeah. And it's not always a bad thing, don't get me wrong. If it's more of a comedic version of this, then that portion where they're not believing the person can be really funny. Like, that can be good if that's the tone you're going for. But this was a more serious, this is dangerous and there's a threat and it's like, this did not fit like going through that as a fun thing. And it is a fun episode, but it's fun because it's like ooh and ah and so really dug how they showed all this stuff, and they get to the point, and I actually kind of love that they theorize beyond what's actually happening to an extent, because when they get to the loop where they've figured out Geordi's visor and they've done enough where Geordi and Crusher are like, okay, we're actually kind of theorizing now we're in a loop of some kind, right? They get to that point. They don't know for sure, but they think they might be. And Geordi's explaining it to the senior officers. They're in the meeting, and he's explaining this. And they start, and I think it's Riker, leans forward and goes, "Wait, so you're telling me we could have had this conversation a dozen times?" And Geordi's like, "Hey, we could have been here for years." And I love that
the exact quote. And the only reason I know this is because I've seen this meme more times than I can get to count. Because the exact line is a dozen, 100. There's no way to know. And the meme that it just gets reposted every so often, various places, is we could have seen this meme before. There's no way to know.
Yeah, no, I like this because we kind of know as an audience that it's not that, because what this episode does, unlike some other time loop stories, is that it's very clear that with each loop, more characters are remembering more details. So we actually kind of know with relative certainty that even if the first loop we saw fully wasn't just the second time they experienced it, it was probably early on. It was, because each time, like, Crusher's remembering more, other characters start remembering more. We know it's not been years, but I love that they theorized that this could be years into a loop.
Could have been. I would say, based off of information at the end, I don't think that was the first time that we saw.
Sure.
I do think it was early, but I think there was probably a few more before that.
We find out that there's 17 days off, and the loop does last a bit of day because it starts the night before playing poker. Crusher goes to bed, they get up, have the meeting, then the disaster happens. So 17 days would imply about 17 loops, give or take.
Yeah.
So maybe it was like 10 loops before she started remembering, but that was enough time that they all, and it does actually make sense when you think about it, because if she heard voices that first time we saw a full loop, then that would imply there was enough echoes that had built up.
Yes.
Over some loops to facilitate that
lends credence to there's probably been some loops before that.
Yeah. So when I say first instance, I just really mean the ones we see as opposed to the actual thing. But so no, I love all that. I love the theorizing. I love that Picard's is just simply that he was reading a book and he felt like he'd read it before, but he just assumed that he'd read it years ago and just forgot.
I like that because it gets more and more as it goes on, because Picard tends to be one of the last to learn about it, because he's not with everyone else figuring it out. And like early on, he's like, "Oh, Chris," he goes, "Yeah, I had some deja vu. I thought I maybe read a few paragraphs before." And by the end, like in the last couple of loops, he's there staring at the book and flipping back pages and going, "No, this can't be right." He goes, "I definitely know this already." He's double checking the copy of the book is still the same.
And that's the great thing, is that because each time the loops happen, they're getting more and more of a sense of deja vu. Although they do point out the difference is that deja vu is just thinking you're remembering something, but this is actually like, no, wait, this is actually a repetition. But I do like that because of that, when we get to like, X number of loops in, and someone, probably Crusher, says to Picard, like, have you experienced any kind of, moments of remembrance? He's like, as a matter of fact, I have. And like, sure, he doesn't know for sure that they're in a loop because they're not remembering all these details every time, but there's enough of a feeling each time that we know, like, it gets easier to convince everyone, so it actually works really well as not being like frustrating to watch because the characters are at least accepting it easier as it goes on.
It's the same thing with Crusher and Geordie. Like the first time she's like, "Have you had these symptoms before?" He's like, "No, never." And then on subsequent times when she asks him that, he's like, "Now that you mention it, I kind of do remember."
Yeah. So they have this idea that because there was echoes going back, they can't just beam like an exact message, but maybe they can do something with data to give them like a sort of subliminal thing. There's some gobbledygook to explain that maybe, okay, we can send like a simple one phrase, one word maybe.
Positronic subconscious nonsense.
Something or other. And so we see like the ending play out again, and all the same mistakes are made. But right before it explodes, Data, does a little tap on his console, and then we reset. And this is where it actually uses everything that's set up with this poker game, because they're sitting, and I love how this is shot so differently, because it starts with this wide shot from really far back this time, and it's basically the camera saying, this time is going to be different. This is a bigger deal this time.
And it's different immediately because Crusher's the only one seemingly remembering again. Like, she starts predicting cards, and the others don't join in this time.
Yeah. What I love about this, though, is that she predicts cards. We expect her to be right because she's been right multiple times, and that's what the premise of the episode is. But then she's wrong. But it's very specific that she's wrong, and because it's like everyone's a 3, and it's like, wait a minute. And then obviously as an audience, we're thinking, okay, this is like Data's done something, and this is like the result of whatever Data's done, is that he is, whether knowingly or and it's unknowingly, has like arranged the cards to this way, which is a neat little like bit of foreshadowing in the episode, because
the whole time,
yeah, every time the loop starts, the first thing that is said at this poker game is Riker cracking a joke that Data is like, playing the deck and like arranging it, and Worf's like, "Oh, you better not be." So it's really funny that the ultimate kind of like message is accomplished through him subconsciously arranging the deck and in a way to...
Yeah, and basically over the day there's just a lot of 3s, and
yeah.
There's something to this 3 nonsense.
Yeah. And then ultimately what it is that they're making all the same mistakes again, but right before he carries out the order that Data himself recommended, he looks over at Riker, who's right next to him, and he sees the 3 emblems on his collar, his rank, and he basically goes, "I think that's what the message is that Riker was right. Riker's idea was I mean, he doesn't even know if it's going to be right when they typed it, but he knows his was wrong, so he might as well try Riker's way."
What I really like about this is it seems like a stretch to get that from 3, right?
Yeah.
But Data's the one who had the idea in the first place. It was his idea to send 3, and he had it presumably looking at Riker.
And he also had it right before they were destroyed. And if this is how they're about to die, and everything's going to end now, it makes sense that it would be something in this moment that would make him think of the number 3. So there's enough there.
No, exactly. And is Data saying a message? So if it's a weird thing, but it works for Data's brain, of course it makes sense that he would understand it in the same way because he thought it up, right? That's why. Yeah. Of course it would, make him think of that.
Yeah, it wouldn't necessarily trigger for anyone else, but it was his idea in the first place, so it makes sense his brain would make it click.
So as much
as
it seems like a weird kind of just, okay, that's a stretch, it kind of actually perfectly works, specifically because it's Data sending the message to himself.
And of course, this all went on so long, and we're getting right to the end of the episode now that I forgot Kelsey Grammer was going to show up. So when they hailed this other ship, and they've established at this point that it's been 17 days they've been like out of the loop, or in the loop I suppose actually, but
yes, in the loop,
out the loop in the saying sense. they bring it up in comms, and like Kelsey Grammer's there, and I noted when I looked at the image last episode that he's wearing a Wrath of Khan era outfit.
I forgot you'd said that.
Yeah, but it was when like they popped up, and I was like, oh, that explains why they're, because they've been in this loop longer. They've been doing this for, I think they said something like 8 years, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's why they're wearing those outfits. And it just it builds up to Picard saying, do you know what year it is? And because Kelsey Grammer's having none of it, he's like, we only left port like 3 weeks ago. Where there's a.
I was like, you should probably beam over.
We're gonna have a chat about what time. Do you know what? This is purely a cameo. He's not a main character in the episode, but there is something about like having the if you're going to do this reveal where the other ship's a Starfleet ship from a different time period, unless you're going to get someone actually back from a previous thing. There is something about having like a relatively famous person that's recognizable be there to like recognize. It kind of works in a weird way.
Especially as this was airing.
Yeah, because this was like right. I mean, Frasier would be like on season 2 or 3, I think, when this aired. Some of that.
So, it would be well known already.
I mean, Cheers ended 93, Frasier started in 83. So this is actually, no, this may be just been the Cheers. May not have been to quite Frasier yet. But either way, he's,
I mean, he was well known enough from that already.
So, so it oddly kind of works having someone who's recognizable, even though they're not associated necessarily with Trek.
Yeah. There's just lots of little small things I like loop to loop, like Picard wearing different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes he's wearing just the red. Sometimes he's wearing this like grey one. Sometimes he's got like a jacket over the top.
His grey one's like his late night cozy thing that he wears.
Right, but sometimes it's the same point of the loop, but he's wearing a different thing, or he'll just show up wearing a jacket on some loops, whereas others he doesn't. Just these small little things that show, things can change loop to loop. I
also like the differentiation, because this is actually set up in the conversation at the poker game when I think it's when Worf first says that he has this feeling, because he has like a Klingon word for deja vu, and he says, I've got this feeling, and so, I've done this before, and Riker says, last Tuesday, and Worf goes, no, that's not what I mean. And I like that setup, because later on there's a moment where Crusher's in a room, and we're just sort of quietly following her. Because every time we see her in a room, she's like, tending to her plan, and she's like pouring the glass, and she's doing little things she always does before bed, presumably. And she has this moment in one of the loops where she starts to get a little bit weirded out, and she like puts down the scissors, and she doesn't, she's like, and it's like, obviously she's not weirded out at the thought of doing any of these things, because these are obviously all things that she does on a regular basis, but it's this specific time it feels like she's doing it again. And it's a really like weird sensation, I think, to get across to the audience. But I think you get it. I think you can understand it and you feel it.
You do.
So
also, I don't actually know, but I really hope this show aired on a Tuesday. Because I think that line's funnier if the show airs on a Tuesday.
That doesn't mean this is set on a Tuesday, though. It means the last time I played poker was a Tuesday.
No, it does mean that, and in universe, that's why it works regardless. Yeah. But if it's a meta joke as well, it's funnier.
It may be different. I mean, it may be different in different states though, because it was syndicated, so it wouldn't have necessarily
that's true.
been the same night everywhere.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. So it's not like in the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's a joke in season 6. I think it's the musical episode when Dawn gets kidnapped, and Buffy turns around and goes, "Oh, it must be Tuesday," because that was the night it was airing on at the time.
Yeah. I think some of the CW superhero shows have done that.
Oh
as well.
Yeah, like The City's Under Siege. Oh, must be May. Because that's when the finale would always there.
Yeah. Those sorts of things. I always appreciate those things, which is and again, no matter what day this aired on, or aired on different days and irrelevant. It's just funnier if I think of it in my head as it always aired on a Tuesday.
One of the things that I always think of, this is going on a bit of a slight tangent here, but I think about it on sci-fi shows. I've thought about it in Babylon 5 quite a bit. But even in Star Trek, like, are they, and if they are, why are they still using standard Earth time to like measure, especially when they're intermingling with a lot of other races? They've got other races on the ship. Now, admittedly, this is an Earth, mainly Earth ship.
It is.
That's true, but
various sci-fi worlds have answered this in different ways.
Yeah, I know, but not all of them address it. They just do it because it's easy to use as a reference point for the audience, because we all understand, weeks, months, hours, days, whatever. But it's one of those things where sometimes in Babylon 5, and it's because the station was built by humans and it's like Earth started it, it uses Earth time. And every so often they will have one of the aliens say like Earth hours when they talk about time, because to them it would be different and weird. So, but they don't always do it, so it sticks out to them like, oh, you know.
Yeah, and again, in a show like Trek with universal translators, you could say they're actually talking in their own, and it converts as part of the translation.
Oh sure, yeah.
If you really wanted to,
that's it. I mean, the only
what the official explanation is in Trek, but
I mean, the only person on the ship that this would apply to is Worf, but Worf grew up with humans on Earth anyway, so he would be used to Earth time.
that's very presumptuous for you. What about Troy?
She's half human, right?
Yeah, but did she grow up on Earth?
That's true. Okay, maybe Troy. Maybe Troy's not used to Earth time as much.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Okay, fair enough. Troy's the one.
Yeah. I'm just saying. Let's be inclusive.
All right. Sorry, Troy. Look, let's be honest. Betazoids look pretty human, all right? It didn't occur to me.
Oh, Betazoid erasure happening here.
Well, I mean, the only true Betazoids we've got to go on is her and her mother, so I mean... But yes. But very good episode. The mystery played out just nicely. The little teases, the subtle ways it changed how it shot things, you know, loop to loop, the way the characters reacted to things. I actually thought, you know, for an episode that kind of gave Crusher a bit of the spotlight for a while because she was the first one to start noticing things. I thought it was probably some of the most stuff I've enjoyed in terms of stuff that's focused on her. I thought
if we can count this as a Crusher episode, which
it's borderline.
We can.
Yeah, it's borderline.
Yeah, maybe. But like, if you had to pick one character, you probably would lean to Crusher.
Yeah.
I'd say this ranks among the best.
What I think what's good about it is it doesn't like, you know, it's just she's just the character that she is, but she you know, she gets to, I think the actress, you know, McFadden, she gets to do, you know, like the way she the poker game when she's like remembering things, she gets a lot of nice little subtle acting moments in this that I think are different to what she normally gets to do, where she's just saying blah blah blah, like you'll be fine, you know, take two and call me in the morning, kind of thing. She's never said that, obviously, but
she probably has.
Medical jargon.
Nonsense doctor speak.
Yes. Do you think any doctor working today has ever said the sentence, whatever it is, take whatever it is, but and ended it with, and call me in the morning? Do you think that's actually something that's ever uttered by any working doctor currently practicing today? To a patient, obviously.
I think it's possible.
It's possible.
I think, yeah, I'm not willing to rule it out.
It's not widespread though, right? Like no one's like throwing this around.
No. Well, not every doctor say that, but depending on what, it's the sort of thing where if I called 111, which is, you know, the non-emergency number for the hospitals.
Yeah, I've got a
like,
boo-boo, you know, but I'm not like dying. Yes. Yeah,
like what did I do? If they go to the pharmacist, get that, take two, phone back in the morning if you need to. You know, if it's still
that's different. It
is different, but I am stretching it a little bit. But like, I can see that being fairly common.
Because I feel like that.
I agree. I'm saying I can see that specific scenario being quite common.
Admittedly,
GP saying "call me in the morning." Less so.
Whether or not it was ever true, because it may just be like a movie thing that you know, like the chalk outlines for police, right? It just like it's just a fake made up thing. But if it was ever a true thing, I have to imagine it comes from a time when only rich people had doctors, and there were like personal doctors who would come out in the middle of the night if they would be called upon. I have to imagine it's that type of like doctor who would have, if any ever did, it would be that type of doctor. And I don't know if that's as much of a thing, you know. I mean, maybe filthy rich still probably have like doctors on call, but I don't know. They'll Skype now though, don't they? If they could identify a rash without having to like travel to some mansion, I'm sure they'll do it.
It depends. Are they getting a free drink at the mansion? Because I have to imagine the booze on offer in a mansion is pretty decent.
I mean, as if someone with a mansion, maybe they're sending like a fancy car or even a helicopter to pick you up, so maybe it's not that much of a hassle just to accept the ride.
And it's probably a pretty hefty bill that you're charging.
Oh yeah, you're probably charging like, you know, thousands by the hour for this.
This is a call out. You're taking me out of my day. I'm coming all the way over here.
Yeah,
you got to earn those monies.
Yeah, you're probably earning a tidy like 20 grand for a couple hours of work, probably, in this scenario. Maybe even more than that. I don't know what they charge for this type of.
Isn't that what every doctor charges in America?
That was a cheap joke, but it was there.
Well, for Americans, it wasn't.
Very good, very good. So there you go. That's the episode. Cause and effect. Very good episode. We were excited about the episode based on the description and the rating when we looked at it, but I'd say it lived up.
Yeah, this was.
It'll do well
from this season.
It'll do well when we get to our top 10.
I don't know where yet, but it will place.
Or it's top 5, but do not top 10.
I think it's top 5 because otherwise it's like half the season.
Well, it's just because Twilight Zone has like 30 plus episodes, so we do a top 10.
Yeah.
All right, next up. Oh dear. Oh no. So the episode's called The First Duty.
Okay. That isn't inherently a bad sounding title.
It wasn't a title that stuck out to me. It was the first words of the description that caught my eye when I turned the page. The description on IMDb is as follows. Wesley! Wesley Crusher's team has an accident at Starfleet Academy. Picard offers to help a Starfleet investigation as to what happened and begins to suspect they are hiding something. Also, Wesley's in trouble. Having these little team of nerds have like blown up a lab or something and they're coming in to investigate. Now, young Mr. Crusher, what have you done now? I mean, it's actually got a pretty decent rating, so it's probably going to be all right. But
it probably is, but my reaction stands.
Yeah, I wonder how much it looks like because it's been a while since we've seen Wes. I wonder how much he looks like he's aged since we last saw him.
It has to be a little bit at least. I'd have thought.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just like I saw him in a movie called Rent-A-Pal a couple of years ago. And I'm just like, I wonder if he looks like that yet in this next episode.
I've seen him in things in the past, like 5, 6, 7 years.
Oh, he pops up.
I know.
Yeah.
I know what he looks like now.
He pops up as cameos and things, and he does conventions.
I mean, he seems like a perfectly nice dude. We obviously make fun of his character. We're not making fun of him.
Oh yeah. We also give Troy a bit of a hard time. I'm not really making fun of Marina Sirtis.
No.
Maybe Connor is given that reaction.
Making fun of less capable actor. She might be.
I do have to admit her very short stint on another TV show. Oh, it was Titans. I was trying to remember. I was
laughing because I already knew what it was.
I could remember the scene of her sitting with like a younger woman in a cafe having a scone. I was like, it took me a second to like, what show was that? It was Titans. Because it was Dove, right? It was Dove she was with. Yes, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that was rough.
I also saw her in The Grudge 3. She's in that.
I don't know if I've ever seen her be good in anything. Like, legitimately good.
I mean, no, she's at her best in Trek.
Yeah. Well, maybe Mass Effect, if I can count that.
Oh, actually, no, she has a voice in XCOM 2. She does the voice of Dragonova in XCOM 2 and War of the Chosen. In fact, not only that, the other two so it's the three faction leaders. She's one. Riker is one of the voices, and Worf is one of the voices. So there's like the next gen cast are like, and a lot of XCOM 2. Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
I would say she's maybe a better
voice actor. Yeah.
I mean, based off of what I have seen her in.
Oh, Right. Oh no, he is the leader. I was going to say Riker's not actually one of the leaders, but yes, he's the head of the he's not one of the playable characters. He's the head of the Reapers, and then she voices the actual Reaper you get to play with. And then Worf is, I think he's Mox. I want to say. Yeah. So yeah, but they're all there. It's an interesting little reunion of sorts.
Very intentional choice, and I approve of it.
They fit in well. What can I say? Yeah, what we need is Picard for XCOM 3. Let's get some.
He'll do it. He does loads of voice work.
I'm sure he's up for it. I mean, I don't want him to replace Welcome Back Commander guy because he's iconic. We need to have him back.
He is. Yeah.
But yes. Anyway, that's a bit of a Trek related XCOM tangent. But yes, let us know what you thought of the episode. The comments below, like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. All those things help us out a lot on YouTube, so please hit the buttons. You can of course support us over at patreon.com/MailedFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month, and get some bonuses for your trouble. Help keep all the content. So that is us though. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And somewhere out there, Wesley Crusher seems to be losing control.